everyone, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast.
Yeah!
Yeah! Right. Heck yeah, roll credits.
That's all, folks.
That's it, that's the whole podcast. Thanks for tuning in to our 18-second podcast. Have a good week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye!
Bye! Okay, so not really. Generator, would you like to remind everyone what the word is this week?
The word of the week is ghost.
Boo! Ha!
I'm
Ghost.
scared!
Ah! So scared. Right. So, what do you think Google says the definition of ghost is?
There's
two options.
Okay. Ooh, maybe. Here we go. One of them is a verb, to ghost, as in to not show up without telling someone that you're not going to show up.
That's a good one.
There we go.
Uh-huh.
And then another option would be a dead specter energy that exists but doesn't. I don't know.
Honestly, same.
What is even a ghost?
So the noun is an apparition of a dead person which is believed to appear or become manifest to the living, typically as a nebulous image.
Okay.
Pretty actually solid for Google definition. Also, it has, like, the picture that usually pops up is just, like, a kid in a sheet with the eye hole cut out, which
oh, that's cute.
Chef's kiss. Verbs, they don't have yours, but I think that one counts.
Rude. Mine's the best.
Yours is
I'd like
the
to
best.
see what theirs are.
One is to act as, like, a ghostwriter.
Oh, okay.
Which is valid. And then, or to glide smoothly and effortlessly, like they ghosted up the river.
Oh my god. Fine.
Both are valid.
It.
It will allow it here. But I also think to ghost.
They ghosted up the river.
When I expanded out, to end a personal relationship with someone by suddenly and without explanation withdrawing from all communication.
All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Cool.
There we go. So, ghost.
Beat that, Google.
Beat that, Google. This should not be a surprise to anyone that I brought Ghostbusters.
Oh, I knew it! Yes! Before we started recording, listener, she said that she brought something lighthearted and fun, and I said, I think I know what it is. Mm-hmm. And that was the extent of the conversation. I so called it. I'm so excited. Okay. Side note, I've not actually seen all of Ghostbusters. I've only seen part of it because it scared me too much when I was little.
All right, that's fair. I will allow that. But you're familiar with Ghostbusters.
Yes, I know the premise.
All right. So it's a, oh God, I don't know what year it came out. 84? It's 80s something.
I didn't realize it was that early.
Yeah, it's older. And then they have like so many spinoffs. There's Ghostbuster 2. There's the revamp of the Ghostbusters movie with where it's all females instead of men, which I liked. I thought it was campy and silly and suffers from many an old, especially like the early 80s movies where they're like, yeah, it was super serious and we need to do it this way and I can't believe they changed it. And then you're like, did we watch the same movie? Because it was not super serial, but okay. But
super serial?
That's my... It's an old thing. My brother and I used to say it's cereal instead of serious. It comes out sometimes that I don't mean it.
I'm sorry.
There are like comics. I think they show up in a Marvel episode, like a Marvel comic one time. There's, I think, Ghostbusters Afterlife too, which just came out or just recently, like 2021, which I don't know if that did good or not. I don't think I've seen that. But anyway.
I've not heard of it, so I don't know.
No. But
I don't know how I missed it.
The global panini was happening. But this is a supernatural comedy film that was directed and produced by Ivan Reitman, written by Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, starring Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Harold Ramis as three Columbian University, I think, parapsychology professors, Peter Venkman, Ray Stantz, and Egon Spengler are the three character names.
Okay,
and
good names.
They, Bill Murray, I think, like, I have a theory, like, the whole point of this was they were hunting ghosts, but, like, at no point does Bill Murray's character, Peter Venkler, to me, ever seem like he believes that the ghosts are happening. Like, it's always just, like, this straight face, like, oh, okay, that's what's going on now. But, like, he always seemed like he was in it for the babes and not for, like, anything else. Because he's just, like, a real big flirt the whole movie. One of the first scenes we get is them doing their paranormal focused research, and it's like those like big cards, and he's like holding up cards and being like, what card, like what's the symbol on the card, and there's like a square and a star and a circle and things like that. And he's first doing it with a guy, and the guy's just getting it completely wrong every time, and he's just like, wrong, like just ridiculing this guy for not being psychic, even though this guy claimed he was psychic.
Oh no.
And then later there's a attractive lady who's doing it, and she's just like, I think I see like a square and it's a star, and he's like, yeah, good job, and then he just hides it and is just lying that she is psychic.
Oh no.
And so he's kind of a schmoozer and a little scuzzy, but you know, it's Bill Murray in the 80s. But so they are doing, I don't know that they, like, I don't know what the point of their research was, but they get fired from their team, or like the dean of the university comes and is like, no, this isn't working. This is ridiculous. We can't have you like affecting our good name of the Columbia University or whatever. Mm-hmm. So they get fired. I think they have their first experience at the New York Public Library with like an actual ghost. They like interacted with it with just like a little bit, but then they're off on their own, and then they don't have any grant money, and they're trying to figure out what to do. So they develop the Ghostbusters, which is a paranormal investigation and elimination service. And they have the old beat up car, and they're like, I don't know where they got the money for like buying a firehouse in like New York to set up this place, because like I feel like even in the 80s that was expensive, but what do I know? But they have, I think one of them's like a theoretical physicist or something like that, but they develop these like ridiculous, air quotes, high tech, I think it's supposed to be nuclear powered equipment that is like this box with like, it honestly looks like, and it probably was like a vacuum, but they look like big vacuum cleaners that are connected to their backs, like with backpacks. Yeah. And they suck up ghosts that way. That's kind of the A plot. And then we get Sigourney Weaver, who plays Dana, I think. Dana Barrett. I just know she's Sigourney Weaver. But she is asking for help, and she thinks she's crazy, but like her refrigerator, when she opens it up, it's no longer her refrigerator, but it's like a portal to another dimension. Uh-oh. And it just keeps saying the single word Zool. And
Zool.
Zool. Z-U-U-L. There is only Zool. And she contacts the Ghostbusters, and Bill Murray comes over and is like a shameless flirt and like does not believe her, and it's ridiculous because he's like his whole shtick is trying to make money like fighting off ghosts, and you would think they would like Paranormal Activity this, or like whatever those like Ghost Hunter international shows are, where they like pretend and like go along with it, even because like you're trying to get money from people for ghost hunting. So you would think that they would at least like act like, okay, yeah, that sounds right. But Bill Murray is just like, oh, okay. And so he just kind of shows up out of nowhere, and this like ghost keeps like harassing her and like takes the sheets off her bed and is just like being more of just like a nuisance than anything. And then he opens the refrigerator and then sees the portal and then closes the refrigerator and is like, oh, okay, maybe you're not crazy. And so at some point they have to get a gluttonous ghost called the Slimer out of a hotel.
I was going to say the Slimer.
The Slimer. Yeah, out of the hotel. Because that's the other bit that they're doing is like them testing out their equipment. And it's like this crazy, like, kind of like ridiculous chase scene. And the Slimer is like this green, like goopy monster that kind of floats and shows up out of nowhere. And they use their proton pack weapons that I think it's don't cross the streams, otherwise you'll create a catastrophic energy explosion, which becomes important towards the end of the story.
Okay.
But
keep that in our back pocket.
I think it was like he was Egon is the one who's making them, and he's the one who's worried about it. But their stint through the hotel works, and then they capture the ghost and are able to contain it in an eco-containment unit in the firehouse. Then all of a sudden, like, because of their stint with the hotel, because I think they were supposed to keep it on the DL, and the hotel manager was like, no, it's in the library. I need you to get it out of this room before we have some big crazy event. But because, you know, things go awry and it's a wacky 80s movie, like all the celebrities or whatever find out about it, which like basically bumps up the Ghostbusters, popularity, and then they become more popular, and they have their like they hire a secretary who answers the phones and is just like, there's the scene with like things going off and she's always shouting like, we got one. And then I think they hire on a fourth dude, Winston Zedmore, to cope with their growing need for ghost busting. And there's like the play over the song of
ghost bust.
They must bust the ghosts. And then we get the like Ghostbusters song like montage of them like catching a bunch of different ghosts. And then after like this first little bit of a high, we get the EPA gets suspicious of the Ghostbusters. Oh no. And they send in a guy, I think his last name's Peck, who asks to evaluate their equipment. But Peter is like, no, this is fine. Don't worry about it. But Egon is worried that like all their containment of all of these ghosts throughout New York City into one area is actually like surging supernatural energy. And he's like, what is causing all of this? Like, is it us? Meanwhile, Peter then meets with Dana again because they've done some research on Zool, and they discover he's some like weird demigod thing. I've never understood this plot point, but he's some weird demigod thing. And I think he's some sort of like destruction god or like doombringer, whatever, some chaos gremlin that's going to cause a lot of problems for everybody. And she gets, I think they like thought they fixed the problem. And so she's finally able to go back to her apartment, but then she's possessed by Zool because they didn't actually capture Zool. And they find a similar entity that possesses her neighbor. So when Peter comes to check on her to like tell her more about Zool, he discovers that Dana is claiming to be the gatekeeper, and he has to bring the keymaster, who is the neighbor, I think. And this is where I've always like lost the plot because I'm like,
keymaster.
I'm the keymaster. Are you the gatekeeper? And something they need to interact with each other so that they can unleash the evil entity upon the planet. Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the EPA guy comes back with city workers to try to arrest the Ghostbusters and get their containment unit deactivated, which explodes and then releases all of the ghosts. And so all of them are like causing an absolute conniption throughout New York. The Keymaster escapes because I think he got arrested. I think the Keymaster got arrested. I think that's the bit I'm missing, is the Keymaster got arrested, but because of the explosion and the confusion, the Keymaster is able to escape and get to Dana. And then in jail, two of the Ghostbusters, Ray and Egon, are discover that he was some sort of cult worshiper nonsense, and so Dana's being used to act as an antenna for spiritual energy to summon the god of destruction thing and then release like crazy chaos supernatural energy. So
cool. Good goals.
So as chaos ensues, the mayor releases them because he's like, oh, maybe this wasn't a load of hogwash and that we should actually let the people who are claiming to be professionals handle this thing. And some part of New York gets turned into this like crazy big temple thing. And there's like demonic temple dogs and they get attacked by the destructor god thing. And then this is where we accidentally get the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, which is kind of like the what's the word for it? I lost my words. He's like the classic picture of Ghostbusters, like the big marshmallow man like walking through. Like,
oh, I thought that was Slimer.
So there's Slimer, but there's so Slimer's in the like the trailers and stuff, but then there's the marshmallow
he's not in the
guy.
logo.
No, he's not in the logo. That's Slimer.
Oh,
but the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Hang on, I'll find you a picture.
I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were talking about different guys here.
He's like a mascot that Egon accidentally like throws the beacon onto, and then it like explodes into. It's like haunted by a ghost after that. And he's like this. He's kind of looks like the Michelin tire guy.
Mm-hmm. I feel like I know what you're talking about.
It's this guy.
Oh, that's not who I thought you were talking about. Okay.
Oh, here's a picture from the movie. So this is like one of the classic like scenes that they like use to like, it's a trailer scene, right? And like this big thing just torturing New York citizens, running around being possessed by a ghost.
Is he like a balloon like they'd have in a parade?
Yeah, kind of.
That's come to life from possession?
Yeah, basically. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So he's where they need to cross the streams with their proton energy and destroy the dimensional gate. And then after they banish the destruction god back to its dimension and closes the gateway, that for some reason fixes everything, and all the like extra supernatural energy kind of like dies off, and the not Michelin tire man kind of goes back to not being possessed and floats away. And the Ghostbusters rescue Dana and the Keymaster from the wreckage, and then they like are celebrated as heroes and then get to continue to be the Ghostbusters.
Hooray!
Hooray! It's all like neatly tied up in like the last like 20 minutes, and you're like, what happened?
Okay, so actually, I don't think I've ever seen the original Ghostbusters. It's only been Ghostbusters 2 that I've only seen a part of and then was too scared.
Okay,
that's
fair
the
enough.
one where there's like a ghost in the painting, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, that's the one I was too scared for.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, because Ghostbusters 2 goes on a whole nother shenanigans traipse, but this is like the origin story of the Ghostbusters.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And it was
Don't
written...
they go to space at one time?
You know, they probably do. Wouldn't surprise me.
Okay.
They kind of had like a wild stint. I know there was a cartoon for a while that they may have gone to space. Do the Ghostbusters go to space? Googling. There's Space Busters.
Oh, I don't think that's the same thing.
No.
Why would they go to space, though? What ghosts are there?
Space ghosts?
Do aliens have ghosts?
The moon's haunted.
I knew it.
I mean, Space Busters, there is a cartoon episode called Space Busters, and the National Space Program sends a civilian expert in supernatural phenomena. I'm reading this directly from the wiki. And they send Winston into space to find a ghost, apparently.
Okay. Why'd they send him solo? That doesn't sound like a good plan.
Unclear. But I guess the Slimer becomes a bro and hangs out with the Ghostbusters and helps them hunt ghosts, because now I'm learning about
that's that. That's what I've heard of Slimer.
Okay. So the demon god isn't Zool. Zool is just the gatekeeper. Gozer is the demon destruction god. But based on the wiki, Slimer... So in the first one, Slimer just is a chaos gremlin. But the reason he's a chaos gremlin is Gozer's approaching time, provoked him. And that's why there was all the crazy supernatural energy, because it was, more energy than normal. And so then they got, real freaked out, so then they were, haunting things, because that's what ghosts do. And then in Ghostbusters 2, he vibed in the firehouse's garage bay for a while. But it doesn't really seem like he does much other than just annoy Lewis for a little while.
I think he's just comic relief.
But in the extended universe, it looks like he helps them bust ghosts. So I believe he just kind of lives in the firehouse and then eventually got bored and then just kind of hangs out with them. That is my interpretation based on very quickly scheming his Wikipedia page.
Okay. Good life. Or not. Are these ghosts...
Good on life.
Are they entities or are they humans that died?
They're ectoplasm, which is a substance that comes from ghosts and outerworldly beings.
So maybe not terrestrial humans, per se?
Right.
So maybe there are ghosts in space.
So maybe there are ghosts in space.
There we go. Asked and answered.
I think it's more a supernatural. I don't think we address it, really.
Okay, that's fine. Some things can be left as they are.
Some ghost slime ectoplasma outerworldly beings could be a dead person, but could also just be what we're calling, or it's our ghost is different here trope, as opposed to just dead people trope.
Yeah. They just needed a name and it sounded good. Yeah.
Yeah. It's how all zombie movies try not to call them zombies, but yeah.
But they are.
But they are. Ooh.
Cool.
I don't know what I'm on about, but okay. So there's my not super great. I've now understood the plot of Ghostbusters now more telling you about it.
Cool.
Than I have in my whole life.
I could help. That's good. Excellent. Well, I sure do have a quote for you if you'd like it.
I'd love it.
And by that, I mean there's two that I have up in front of me, and I'm going to make a split-second decision as to which one I want to read to you.
Hell yeah.
Okay, well, one of them says the word ghost, the other doesn't, but is better. So I'm going to pick the better one.
Okay.
And you will deal with it.
All right, I will deal with it. This is me dealing with it.
Okay. It's kind of long. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I will live.
All right. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou said, art sure now craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
Ah, I know what this is.
It took us a while to get there. I'm sorry it was so long.
It's all good.
It does say ghastly in it, which is a form of ghost.
This is true. And so also knowing what I know about this poem, I think it counts.
Thank you. I'm glad you know what you know about this poem. Hint for the listeners.
Yeah,
I'm sure everyone knows this.
Yeah. I hope so. Otherwise, you missed English Lit 101.
Or just, like, the
Existence.
cultural conscience. Yeah.
Pulp culture, all the things. If you don't know what this quote's from, definitely hit us up on various forms of social media.
And we'll tell you where to go to figure it out.
Yeah, which is the end of the episode.
I was just going to say, just keep listening.
But we have a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr sometimes, YouTube. You can find
Also
us
sometimes.
Also sometimes.
Sorry, that was so shady.
I mean, we do have a YouTube. It's just not as it's not as up to date as like Spotify and things like that. But you can find us using the hashtag Nerd of the Week or hashtag NOTWP. The P is for podcast because if it's just NOTW, people think you're talking about Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss, something like that. Unclear.
We should read this book and bring it for something.
I have read this book.
Oh,
and
you
I
have?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, is it good?
It's okay.
Okay.
It's different. The second one is better. There's a lot of world building in the first book that just takes you a while to get through. But anyway,
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Solid recommendation.
Yeah. I don't know if that was, but it's fine.
A semi-permeable recommendation.
Semi-permeable recommendation for Nerd of the Week.
Porous recommendation. Okay, before I come up with more synonyms for that metaphor, let me tell you about my thing that I brought.
Sounds good.
I don't know if maybe we want to put like a trigger warning for death.
Okay.
Because, I mean, ghosts. So
Yeah.
if you don't like talking about death, you might want to just skip my section.
Yeah,
I'll
just go to the end
forgive
and
ya.
learn about the quote.
Yeah. If you're just dying to know what the quote was from.
Boo.
Okay. I'm really sorry. I'm in a mood.
I can see that.
Let me tell you about my thing. It
All right.
is the Korean drama called Hotel de Luna, which came out in 2019, and it was a smashing success, apparently, in Korea.
Okay.
And it's quite good. It being a drama is super complex, and I'm not going to try and tell you every little thing about it, because when I ever try and do that, we end up having 2-hour-long episodes, and that's not okay. So instead, I'm going to do a kind of like brief overview, and then we'll talk about some specific ghosts within the setting, okay?
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
great.
All right. So kind of some overview. It opens first back in like thousands of years ago in like feudal Korea. And there's this warrior princess who's like leading a horse that's pulling this like coffin, it looks like. And she's wearing a scarf that's covered in blood, and she looks very weary from her travels. She then comes across this like oasis in the desert. It's not really desert, just wilderness. There's this old lady who says, "Here, you drink this; it'll get your strength back up." And this like old lady, you know, she's saying things that are kind of like bothersome to this warrior, and the warrior like drinks the alcohol. She says, "This tastes atrocious, and if you don't shut up right now, I'm gonna cut your tongue out." Needless to say, the old grandmother does not appreciate this, and she starts kind of like accusing this girl of like, well, what about all the other worse things that you've done, and kind of like getting into her and kind of alluding like, I know more about you than you think I do. As it turns out, the warrior princess is actually a ghost. She's not actually technically alive, but she kind of sort of is.
Okay.
We'll get into more of that as time goes on. The story, it's told through a lot of like flashbacks back to this time period. So remember, thousands of years ago. Anyway, the old grandmother, she turns out to be one of the faces of God. So basically she
was not expecting that.
Yes. One of the faces of God. So she imprisons this warrior princess in a place called the Inn of the Moon, and basically sets her up as the owner and proprietor of the inn. which the whole premise of the inn, which will become in modern day Hotel de Luna instead of the Inn of the Moon, is that it is kind of a resting spot for dead souls before they go on to the afterlife. So like kind of feeding off the premise of ghosts are here because they're souls that have unfinished business or something like that. You probably heard that in popular culture as well.
Yes.
So it's kind of there for ghosts to sit and like figure things out, and like if they need to find closure or like do something, like basically they can be provided comfort before they pass on to the afterlife. So anyway, this warrior princess, her name is Manuel, which is apparently, I think, old Korean. I don't know Korean. I'm so sorry. But it means full moon. So like she was destined to be the owner of this place from the get-go.
Got it. Yeah. Names mean things.
Yes. So anyway, she is the sole proprietor of this inn for 1,000 years until we get to the present day. And basically she's imprisoned there, and that she kind of has to learn a lesson, essentially.
Okay.
So in present day, through some shenanigans, basically a father sells his son to God to be like in exchange for his life. He's in what would be a fatal accident, but he begs God to like let him live because he has his son waiting at home, and like his son would have nowhere else to go. And God takes pity on him and says, but when your son turns 20, you have to send him back to me, and he's going to work here at the Hotel de Luna.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that does happen. The son, he's Chen Song, and he graduated from Harvard. Like he studied abroad, and he's now this really in-demand manager. Like he studied hotel business, and there's all these really high-star ranking hotels that want to hire him. But then,
what a niche job. Just like a niche, like to be really, really good at a hotel manager.
Yeah. Like you can go to college for hotel management, or like, what is it? Is it accommodation and service? Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, you can major in that. It's a thing.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So anyway, he does not, he heard like a superstition from his father of like, you know, if you go back to Korea, you have to go work at this place, and it's a scary place. Yeah, I saw death while I was there.
Okay.
And so Chen Song is scared to be approached by people asking for him to work at a strange place that he's never heard of before. But Manuel, she is like constantly kind of chasing after him and trying to convince him to come to the hotel. At one point, she gives him the sixth sense, which allows him to see ghosts. And he realizes like, oh my gosh, there's ghosts everywhere, because not all the ghosts go to the hotel. Some of them wander around freely, which is bad. They're not supposed to do that.
I would do that.
You shouldn't do that, and we'll get into that in a second.
Is there like a sandworm? I got it.
No,
okay, I'm sorry. All right.
I'm sorry.
I've been shushed.
Anyway, through shenanigans, basically, Chen Song does work at the hotel. He and Manuel fall in love, of course. And then through all the flashbacks, basically, God is trying to show Chen Song what he needs to do to help Manuel to basically forgive her regrets and like not become an evil ghost and pass happily into the afterlife. Because she's been here waiting to go into the afterlife for 1,000 years, and she has not forgiven her grudges yet. So basically, back in 1,000 years ago, we learned her story was she was kind of the leader of a band of like thieves and traitors, essentially, but they were really like revolutionaries trying to help unify the country. And there's like this little kingdom that they're trying to basically overthrow, sort of. There's a captain of the guard who at one point chases down Manuel, and they kind of like meet on a hill and have this conversation and realize like, oh, we're not actually so different. We just want what's best for our people. And oh, by the way, I love you. So they fall in love 1,000 years ago.
Okay.
But then there's this princess who also is like set up to marry the captain of the guard. So of course she's the evil one in this story.
Naturally.
She's really not, though. We learn that she, like, even though she wants to marry the captain of the guard, she realizes like she is not his first love. Manuel is. But to kind of like keep up with appearances so that like the high rulers don't come and smash everyone down, basically. She has to like kind of set Manuel up to be captured. So this whole time, Manuel thinks that the captain of the guard has betrayed her and like used her to kill all of her people. But it was all just like kind of a misunderstanding, and no one was meant to die. But because of the misunderstandings, no one did the things that they thought they were going to do. You know how misunderstandings go.
Yeah.
A lot of people ended up dying, including Manuel's adoptive brother, who was like the dearest person to her in the world. And she totally blames the captain of the guard and the princess for this all happening. And then the captain of the guard and the princess do get married. Manuel was set free because under the guise of you allowed the captain to achieve a great thing here, so you get to go free. But really it was just like, we didn't mean for this to happen. Please go live.
Right. Oopsie poopsie.
But again, she didn't know that. So anyway, on their wedding night, she goes like into the bedchamber, and before the captain comes, she kills the princess before she has a chance to explain everything. She then like puts on the wedding veil so it looks like she's the princess, but the captain knew she was there. Like he knew she was mad. And basically they fight to like, he's trying to say like, don't kill me, please. Like we can still make this work. Even though literally he was the cause of her brother's death. And she's like, this will never work. And she stabs him. And he says something like, this is our last moment, but I will find you again. And she's like, I never want you to find me. I'm going to kill you in all your lives. Like she has a deep grudge.
Yeah.
So anyway, all this time she's been waiting for him, like his soul to come through the Hotel de Luna so that she could kill him once and for all. However, that would make her an evil ghost. Because if a ghost hurts either a living human or another soul, essentially, they turn evil and they don't get to go to the afterlife. It is do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're done. You're dust. You cease to exist in all reincarnations.
Okay.
So that's what one of the other faces of God, like the God herself has like 6 different iterations that we see. They're all played by the same actress and they all like dress slightly differently so you can tell who's who. There's like the kindly old grandmother who's the one who first installed Manuel into the hotel. And she's kind of like I'm safely helping people pass to the afterlife. Then there's like the really stern justice god who's like, if you mess up, I am going to destroy you. And they're kind of like going against each other a little bit. Even though they're the same person, where like the justice god wants Manuel to mess up and wants to destroy her. So she's always like really closely watching. But all the other goddess faces, they're like helping her out and like trying to get her to do the right thing. So eventually Chen Song, as he learns Manuel's story through his dreams that God provided to him, he is able to figure out how to help her, and he like brings out the best in her, and somehow she thinks like, well, you know, what if you're him in a reincarnated form and these are your past memories that you're remembering? But then she like keeps doubting herself, like, no, that can't be, because you lose all your memories when you cross over the bridge in the afterlife, so it can't be you. That's impossible. And it further proves the point because other people, like the princess gets reincarnated and we see her as like one of Chen Song's friends from college, and her brother gets reincarnated and he's a police officer in Seoul, Korea, and he like gets involved in some murder case that they're solving at one point. But anyway, he falls in love with the reincarnated princess, and of course they don't remember each other, that they were on enemy sides at that point, and then they get married by the end.
The drama.
Manuel like recognizes their faces, obviously. So she knows like what happens when a soul is reincarnated. So it can't possibly be Chen Song that was the captain. As it turns out, this whole time he had been like somehow transformed into a firefly that was in the garden of the Hotel de Luna. And eventually, like, she had never ever said his name for the whole 1,000 years. But once she like is kind of broken down to the point of like, she knows she has to face him and like she's ready and she thinks she knows what she's going to do. He finally appears, and luckily, God was able to like convince her to hear other people's side of the story. So somehow she's able to like get inside everyone else's dreams for a hot second. So she sees the dreams of the princess and the captain, and I believe of her brother as well, and realizes what was supposed to happen and that it was all a misunderstanding and everyone actually did have her best intentions in mind. And so she's able to forgive him and send him to the afterlife finally after 1,000 years.
So this man was a firefly for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Which honestly, you know, being a bug and not really having much of a brain, probably a better way to spend 1,000 years than being like a fully sentient human who has to work in a hotel.
Going absolutely insane. Okay.
Yeah. So maybe he had the better end of the deal. So anyway, once he's sent off and like her regrets are ended, she basically gets to go on to the afterlife. But Chen Song, of course, had fallen in love with her. She fell in love with him, and they're like, we have to meet each other in the next life. It's real sweet. So that's kind of the basic premise of it.
Okay.
Some of the ghosts that we meet here, because it's just chock full of ghosts. Let's see, who shall I tell you about? I'll tell you about let's see, what time have we been going to here? Okay, we got a little bit. I'll give you a few overviews here. We'll start with one that's maybe not so sad.
Okay.
So one of them, the first ghost that Chen Song is able to see when Manuel gives him the sixth sense is this ghost that like she wears sunglasses, but when she takes off her glasses, like her eyes are like gouged out and they're like bleeding eye sockets. Very grotesque. Yeah. Very good special effects makeup, like A+ on the makeup team. But anyway, she's really scary, and like it's his first time seeing a dead ghost. Like he's obviously scared, but then once he realizes like, oh, this was just a person, and like she has regrets in the life, and I have to help her through that because that's my job as the manager now. And so the first thing that he says to her is like, you know, I've been thinking you couldn't see in life, but now you can do anything. So why don't you just believe you can see? And she takes off her glasses and like her eyes are there and she can see finally for the first time in her experience. It's amazing. Oh my goodness. Yeah. However, she still doesn't cross the bridge to the afterlife. And that's because she wants to find a certain person that had shown her kindness during her life and basically not like thank him, but just like see what he looked like because she never had seen him before. So there was this bakery near where she lived, and like this little guy who worked there, he'd always like come and like bring out the bread to her and like let her smell it and like describe it in detail to her. Aww. And it was just like this really sweet little relationship. So she says to Chen Song, like, I will know him based on the feel of his hands because that's the only part of him that I have any sensory relationship to is what his hand felt like. Makes sense. And so Chen Song says, well, obviously you can't go into the bakery and like show yourself. Like that would be ridiculous. So why don't you possess me for a second and I'll go shake everyone's hand in the bakery. So he goes and he finds this guy and he like shakes his hand, and like it's kind of an awkward, long, drawn out handshake. But like you can see the ghost like kind of layered over the scene. Like she is so happy and like she's like, yes, this is it. This is real. And then she just kind of like hangs out in the bakery for the rest of the day, just like watching him work and like just having a good time before she goes off to the afterlife. And then as he's closing up shop, he goes out to a motorbike that he has parked. And he gets on it, and suddenly the ghost has like her gored out eyes again. And you like have a flashback because she's finally remembered the moment that she died. And it was looking into the headlight of this motorcycle as he ran her down. And then she's like calling out like, help me, please help me. And he realizes like, oh, it's that girl that can't see, gets on his bike and runs away, and she dies. So it's kind of like this hard truth for Chen Song because he thought he did something like super good of like, yeah, she just wanted to like meet this guy she'd only felt his hands before. And Manuel is like, well, you have to learn that ghosts usually only remember the moment before they die. That's their strongest memory. And so she remembered his hand as he was hesitating to pick her up off the street and then dropped her back down. So really harsh reality there. But anyway, so Chen Song, he like runs to the ghost and he's like, you can't do this. You can't go after him. Like, that's kind of what she's intending to do, is like go after him and kill him for what he did to her. And he's like, you're going to become an evil ghost and you're going to perish if you do that. And they're able to like talk her down by saying like, don't worry, we'll make sure that he gets prosecuted in real life. So somehow Chen Song is able to take him to the police officers, and like he gives this write up and documentation of like, look, I know this is him. And, you know, it's kind of sad because he basically ruined this guy's life. But obviously this guy like did a really heinous crime.
Right.
And the ghost does feel better for it. And she's able to go to the afterlife. And Chen Song says something like, you must have been a really wonderful person in real life because you remembered only the good things about him. So I guess that's nice. Yeah, so a little dramatic like that. Yeah.
All right.
So that's one ghost. Let's see. I'm trying to think of another one that won't take so long. And also isn't super scary. There's like two really scary ghosts in the show. And they are both like teetering on the edge of about to be destroyed because of the evil things that they do to people. Yeah, I'll tell you about one of them. Only one, though. So, I hope people listen to the trigger warning. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. We'll make sure it's put on the episode, too.
Yes, we'll do that. At first, the other ghost employees of the hotel, they're trying to get rid of Chen Song because they suspect that he was sent there by God to change Menwal, and basically then the hotel will be shut down and they'll have to go to the afterlife, but they're not ready to because they still have their regrets to deal with as well. So that's a whole thing that they have to deal with.
Understood.
So anyway, they're trying to get rid of him, and they're like, what can we do? Well, what if we send him in to our long stay guest who's in room 13? So ominous.
Oh, man.
Because if a human lays eyes on her, they'll go crazy. I don't know how they came to this conclusion, but...
Does Korea also have the superstitious 13 number, too?
Probably.
I'm assuming they do if it's in room 13.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, they send Chen Song in there to burn some incense for the ghost. So he goes in, and each room in the Hotel de Luna is kind of like the ghost almost creates it in their own mind, essentially. So it's whatever they want it to look like. Okay. So he goes in, and it's like first he has to walk through basically a sewer to get to the actual hotel room door. And then once he gets in, it's like this old abandoned warehouse. And there's a single like wardrobe closet sitting in the center with a table in front of it. And that's where the ghost has hidden herself away, is inside this closet. So he burns the incense and nothing's happening. But then like the ghost is awoken and like realizes that he's a human. At first, Manuel like kind of agreed that she wanted to get rid of him after she realized that, oh, God has sent him to me because I need to get my act together. At first, she wanted him like, oh, he's a good businessman. But then she realized what was up, that God was playing a trick on her. So she was also trying to get rid of him. But she'd already started falling in love. And so she decides not to. Yeah. So she goes and saves him. But anyway, because of that, the ghost is then allowed to escape from room 13. Where she had been, basically for her own safety as well as everyone else's. And she's let out into the world. Then, over the next few episodes, it's really a long, drawn-out plot point. So in the next few episodes, we get little scenes of her, like, coming out of people's computers or phones and, like, pushing their eyes in, essentially. Like, not quite killing them, but definitely damaging them. And she is also very disturbing looking, like, very grotesque, very scary. We then learn that the reason she is the way she is and why she hates humans, and particularly men, is unfortunately someone had kind of been filming her in her hotel against her will or without her knowledge. And it got spread all over the internet, and she basically went crazy trying to get the video taken down and unfortunately committed suicide. So anyway, everyone at the hotel realizes like she needs justice. Like she is the way she is because someone like did this terrible thing to her. Like she deserves for these people to suffer for it somehow. So they figure out who her next victim is going to be, and it's like this big CEO of some company, you know, of course he is. At one point, Chen Song and Manuel go there to like kind of interview him and like figure out how they can get back at him. And Manuel just like kind of takes pictures of things in his office, and he's like, it's very rude to do that in someone's personal space. And she's like, oh, is it? And
oops, poopsie.
Oh, I didn't know. Enlighten me more, sir. So anyway, then unfortunately they don't like intercept the video that the ghost is sending to him in time, but that's okay. He basically is spared, and thanks to the justice god appearing right as this ghost was like about to damage him, and she's like, you have hurt humans, you must be punished. And Manuel and Chang Song run up and they're like, no, that's not fair, she deserves justice. And the justice god is like, she's broken the rules, I have no choice. So unfortunately she's destroyed.
Oh.
However, she has a sister that's still alive, so like her sister's been wanting justice for her for a while as well. But Manuel, like, she is trying to go after this guy. So she kind of like invites him to the hotel and somehow infiltrates his GPS and leads him to the hotel without him knowing, because he swears that he wasn't going to go. Simultaneously, because ghost logic, she's able to also have him go out to like the like planting fields, and there's a train that's coming through, and she says, I was able to talk to you now because I put you on the brink of death. And basically it looks like a train is coming and his car won't start and he's stuck on these tracks. And she's like, why did you do this to her? And do you remember this girl? And he's like, well, gosh, I can't remember her out of all the women I did this to. So like exposing him to be the worst piece of human trash in the world. And she's like, well, that's all I needed to know. I needed to expose you for what you are, essentially, so God can see. And it turns out that the train that was coming forward, it was all an illusion that somehow she was creating. However, God was listening. And so as like the train dissipates and Manuel disappears, the CEO guy, he's like sat on the tracks in his car still. And he's like, oh my gosh, it was a dream. I'm alive. Oh my gosh. And like he would be free to go essentially. Well, he tries to start his car, but it doesn't start this time. And it's like the whole scene over. And this time it's a real train, and it really does come, and it hits his car and he dies. And so then you see the sister of the ghost. She's like watching the news and she says, oh, well, I guess there is justice in this world after all.
Oh,
yeah.
Gosh.
So they try and do, you know, like get justice for these people who died either fairly or unfairly, I guess.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. There's obviously no happy ghosts. I can't really tell you one that's like, and this one was real fun.
Right.
But, you know, it's just, they kind of like, the ones that they do follow, it's like they always, since it's a drama, they always see like, oh, it's not so black and white. There's always like a gray zone of like, what should we do? What's the best way? What is like the safest and most just way for everyone? And I don't know, there's lots of points where it makes me cry, but also lots of parts that it makes me laugh. And I think the acting is really good. The effects are really good. It's definitely not low budget. So yeah, that is Hotel de Luna.
Woo.
Online it's classified as a rom-com.
Sure. That's definitely what it sounds like it is.
Yeah. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that.
I did. It sounds fun. In an existential crisis kind of way, but
yeah.
The one that I was on the fence about bringing between this one, Ghostbusters, and then Under the Whispering Door, which by T.J. Klune, which is a book, kind of similar. It's like a hotel, or it's like a stop for ghosts before they like pass on, and cute romance story subplot that's going on as well. So similar vibe.
Nice,
but very cute. Also very
I do
existential.
Think, like, having a little romance in these more like heavy things is like
it
it's
helps.
A good change of pace as well. It kind of breaks
it gives
all
you something
up.
else to focus on. Yeah. For sure.
Alrighty. Would you like my long quote again?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Let's see if I can read it very nicely.
You did it very well the first time.
I think I stuttered a little bit, but let's try again.
Reading's hard.
All right. Then this ebony bird beguiling my sad fancy into smiling by the grave and stern decorum of the countenance it wore. Though thy crest be shorn and shaven, thou, I said, art sure now craven, ghastly grim and ancient raven, wandering from the nightly shore. Tell me what thy lordly name is on the night's Plutonian shore. Quoth the raven, nevermore.
The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe.
Oh, yeah. Also, I like this night's Plutonian shore. That sounds a bit dangerous, I might think.
It's a very evocative image. Good deal. Beautiful.
Perfect.
Solid poem.
Exquisite.
Very, very apt for Ghost.
Yes.
It's a good quote.
Thanks.
What now?
What is next?
What is the next word generator?
The next word is revolution.
Revolution.
Viva la revolution.
All right. I don't know what I'm going to bring for this one.
Mine might be a musical.
Might it be Hamilton?
Oh, that's also a good one.
Oh, okay.
Apparently there's many musicals about revolutions now that I'm thinking about it.
Might it be Les Mis?
Yeah.
Oops, sorry, don't listen to that, listener.
That was my first thought. Anywho's it. Yeah, so we'll talk about revolution next time.
Yeah, we will.
Thanks for hanging out with us toward the end of the podcast and getting that surprise of it being The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe. I know you were shocked as I was. And if you got a sensible chuckle out of us or you enjoyed the podcast, feel free to share it with a friend so we can grow and get a bigger audience, because that would be cool.
Yeah, it would. It certainly would.
Woo! Yeah, I think that's it. Cool. I don't think there's anything else. So, as usual, I've been Stephanie.
And I have been Allison.
This is true. And this has been Nerd of the Week. Remember, we're still not a pyramid scheme. Bye!
Goodbye!